Thanks for joining me today, everyone. I'm so happy to have Jason here with me from Genoa, Executive VP of Digital Services. Is that right?
Thank you. That is exactly correct.
Great. Why don't you just start by people who might not be familiar with Genoa or you, just introducing yourself and the company.
Very good. So Genoa Design is a shipbuilding design firm. We do 3D models for from the design phase to the construction phase, create the production packages for the construction of the ship. In doing that, we've created a lot of data around how the ship is built, the parts, the VFI, and the information that actually ends up talking about how the ship should be put together. So we've started to branch out into a space where we do the traditional design and consulting work, and now we've taken the data aspects of it and we call it unlocking the value of a digital ship. We're trying to break the data that's hidden in the database and bring it forward so people can use it and drive the value of the model that they've created.
So you said digital ship. That's definitely one of those buzzwords in the industry.
Yes, it is.
What does that mean to you? What does digital ship mean to Genoa?
So digital ship, if you think about the life cycle of a ship, the design through commissioning phase when it actually hits the water is only 20-30% of its life cycle. So we spend all this time creating a 3D model of representation of the ship that is actually the structure as it should be as it goes forward. Then in a lot of the industry at the moment, we just take that model once we get to construction, we put it in the water and we take that data, that 3D model that you've bought and paid for, and we put it in a cupboard somewhere and never use it again. The digital ship is really taking that investment that you made in the digital model and making it usable in other phases of the ship's life cycle. So if you think about in-service support, you have all this information about the parts, the structure of the ship, the way it's been put together. As you go through in a maintenance perspective, which is 70% of the life cycle of the ship and probably 70 or 80% of the cost of the ship, now you can unlock that value and say, hey, I can see what the history of all the maintenance has been done with that ship. I can see how that ship operates without being on board that ship. So it really gives you a representation of the ship, the history of the changes that are made with that ship, and gives you insights so you can make value-driven decisions as you go forward and try to do things to modify, maintain, do maintenance on that ship.
Is it changing how the value that the clients are seeing from this? Because I know in the past, the idea of having this 3D information wasn't as important. Is this changing? So
it is. You'll see it in the industry a lot now. So that's the part of the innovation that you see driving into the shipping industry now, the shipbuilding industry, I should say, is that there is a change in attitude. Slowly, it's going to be an educational process like any other innovative change, where people are starting to say, hey, we've spent money on this thing. It has some latent value that we don't understand yet. And people are starting to say, how can I use that? And then they're looking at the other industries and they're hearing how they've digitized things and digitized processes. Right? It's the same as the change to, sketching models to using a 3D model, right? That was an innovation in shipbuilding. Now we're going to the next level where we're taking the data that we put in SSI, or ShipConstructor. We're a very big ShipConstructor user. The data that's been generated in that model, and now we can say, hey, how are ways we can do design better using automation? How are ways we can take that data that's in that model and present it to somebody so when they're making decisions on doing maintenance or redrafting something or redoing a model, how can they make that decision with the best information? So instead of somebody trying to find the binder with all the paperwork in it or calling somebody and saying, hey, where is that model sit today? They can actually say, hey, I have a system of record that will actually show me where this is. So we're focused on it from two aspects as we're moving into the digital ship space. One is the system of engagement. How do you actually play with the data? A lot of these models are in CAD softwares like ShipConstructor, where you have to be a bit of an expert to figure out how to use it. We're trying to figure out how can we make that data more accessible to people? How can they actually play with the data, pick up their iPad and actually have a version of a model of a ship on it as well? So, and it's from a system of engagement perspective, there's a way to actually see the data. from a system of record perspective, we know very well, because we've done so much ship design, what all the different pieces of that ship are, the way it's structured, the way the work breakdown structures are, the parts library, how it integrates with a PLM system. How can I show that so it can add value to the operations of that ship going forward?
Talk to me a bit more about digital services. What do you guys mean by that?
So digital services is basically taking a lot of the paper-based applications and manual work that people are doing today and put it in a format so that you can use it. So we were using the example of, hey, somebody who's in the Navy sitting in Washington, D.C., trying to figure out why that boat is still in dock, right? They have to call somebody, they have to look up a paper, or, somebody's got to go figure out what's not been done, what maintenance is still required, why is that ship still in dock? Wouldn't it be nice if they could pull up an application and go, hey, here's the 6 things that's still not done with that ship. Here's the things that need to happen. It's about representing that data in a way that they can actually use it for information and go on, oh, there's 3 things that still need to be done. It should be done by next week. We see the schedule. Instead of having to go through that question and answer and trying to figure out who has the right answer to what's going on. So there's things about just representing the data so everybody has the information at the same time, in real time, and can actually access it, and then actually do something with it, right? And make a change. So the lower aspect of that is, so if you're on the ship and you're doing duty watch and you're going around with paper, your clipboard and your paper and your pencil and you're writing things down, wouldn't it be nice to take an iPad and actually go in and note those things in a real-time fashion in a database over a 3D representation of the ship, and then have somebody who, now the maintenance person knows they have to go do something because the notification shows up in the system and says, hey, that needs to be changed, or we noticed this thing is not right. So it's really about digitizing the shipyard, and the experience around how the shipbuilding industry should work, and in-service support.
I'm sure that you've come across some challenges with getting to where you want to go.
A little bit.
What are some of the highest level things that keep coming up that maybe if you knew a year ago, you would have been better off, for example?
Just the enormous amount of data that gets generated, right? So if you think about a ShipConstructor and building a model in ShipConstructor, there's so much detail in that model. It's just amazing the amount of data that gets sent back and forth and transported between the shipyard, the design firm. It's just, it was surprising. I came from the high-tech industry before, but the data is generated here it's an amazing amount of data. And when you think about a 3D model, they're heavy from a processing perspective, from a computer capacity perspective. But I didn't really realize how much data was actually generated. And when we started going through, it's like, okay, now you really got to start thinking about how you deal with just the sheer volume of data, and making sure that you really understand what each piece of the data means, which ones have value, which ones I can ignore. So it really was, it took a while to understand that this is a really complex industry. Being outside it, before I joined Genoa, it was, you think about ships, I didn't really think about ships, they just sort of appeared. But now I'm in there, it's a very complex problem to deal with. So the data. The other thing is, shipbuilding is an industry ripe for innovation and digital transformation. It's been done a certain way for a number of years. People like how it worked for them before. And now with the volume of ships that are being built, the shipyards that are not as mature as other shipyards, they've been building smaller ships, and now they're being asked to build gray ships or Coast Guard boats or whatever. They're being asked to jump up the next level of the maturity curve. And just having those conversations with people going, hey, I now have to go build this ship that I've never built before. I need different tools. I need different data management. So a lot of the foundational things that other industries already do, shipbuilding is just getting to them now. I know certain shipyards, the bigger players, have done these things. But in general, the vast majority of the smaller shipyards haven't even had to consider this.
I want to jump now to talking about Genoa has been a client of SSI's for a very long time. There's been a long history there. What makes the partnership successful, in your opinion?
Great communication, right? The software is great, right? That's a given. But for us, it's really been the partnership. So when we find something interesting or we want to do something different with the tool sets, it's been a real good communication between the engineering departments to say, hey, if we restructure something, and they've been able to give us, support in figuring out how to use the tools. But as we became more mature in how we did it, they were also accepting of things where we said, hey, can you do this? How could we do this? And we actually did some joint development and figured some things out. Not development of the software, but figuring out the process on how some of this stuff would work. So it's really been a great relationship for both sides, I would say, in my opinion. But it's been just that teaming, right? It's, you can pick up a phone and get an answer to a problem.
And now looking forward, what are you excited about at Genoa kind of into the future?
It's interesting. So for Genoa, as I said earlier, we've actually restructured. And we're saying, hey, we have a focus on our design and consulting business, the traditional ship design. But now is how do we make that work better in the industry to bring tools and consulting to that field to make that process just more efficient. And then we have the digital side of it where we're saying, hey, how do we take those tools and things that we're building for ourselves internally and our expertise in the data that's in the database that's being generated by these processes, how do we take that and actually make value for the rest of the industry from it? For me, it's just step one in the innovation cycle for the shipbuilding industry. There's just so much opportunity to do things better. Right? And software is going to play a key portion in the center of that, and automation. So it's a great time for, I'd say, both SSI and Genoa in shipbuilding.
Great. Yeah, looking forward to see what you guys get up to and your success in the future.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Right. Take care.